5:30. In attendance tonight, we have regrets from Trustee Olmsted, and I think Trustee Sartori should be showing up in it now. Minutes for her arrival. Can I get a mover to approve the agenda? I have one already. Trustee Leclerc, thank you very much. A seconder to approve this agenda this evening for our public board meeting. Can I get a seconder for that? Seconded by Trustee Sipcar. Thank you very much. Any discussion on the agenda this evening? Seeing and hearing none. Anyone opposed to the agenda? Seeing and hearing none, that passes. Can I get a mover and a seconder to convene into private session? Moved by Trustee Leclerc, seconded by Trustee Sartori. Welcome. Any discussion on that? Any opposition? And that passes. We will convene into private session. We'll be back here to convene Standing Committee on Education at 7 p.m. Thanks, everyone.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Julia Burgess. I'm the Vice Chair of the Education Committee, and I will call the meeting of the Standing Committee on Education for Tuesday, June the 7th, 2022 to order. We do have regrets this evening from Trustee Olmsted, who is the chair of this committee, so I am standing in her stead. Trustee Hickison, the chair of the board, has agreed to help in every way possible looking at the chat. Thank you very much. And to make sure that we don't miss anyone, I really appreciate that, being the extra eyes. So we've given attendance and the call to order. The next thing that I would like to do is to acknowledge the land where we are convening our meeting. We acknowledge that we're on land and surrounded by water, originally inhabited by Indigenous peoples who have traveled the area since time immemorial. This territory is within the lands honored by the Wampum Treaties, agreements between the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, Lenni Lenape, and allied nations to peacefully share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. Specifically, we would like to acknowledge the presence of the Three Fires Confederacy, the Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi, and Huron-Wendat peoples. We are dedicated to honoring Indigenous history and culture while remaining committed to moving forward respectfully with all First Nations, Inuit, and Métis. We acknowledge this now, but particularly specially since it is Indigenous Peoples Month. So we are now at the approval of the agenda, item C. Do I have a motion for the approval of the agenda? And I will ask for any opposition rather than support since we are meeting by teams.
Moved by Trustee Sartori.
Trustee Sartori has moved it and supported by?
It's been supported by Trustee Chin.
Supported by Trustee Chin. Okay, I see that. Thank you very much. The motion is on the floor. Any changes, whatever, to the approval of the agenda? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote, or not for the vote, I'll call for opposition. Any opposition to the approval of the agenda as stated? We don't anticipate any anyone on the speakers list. I should give you that. Okay, I'm hearing none, then that's approved as printed. We're at declarations of conflict of interest for Education Committee. Anyone would like to make a declaration of a conflict of interest? I don't hear or see any. So we'll move on to item E. Approval of the minutes. Pages 1 to 9 in our package. E1, the minutes of the Education Committee meeting from the 3rd of May. I think we have it moved by Trustee Sartori. Thank you very much. And support is seconded by Trustee Ching. Is there any discussion, amendments, anything to the minutes? I don't hear any. Don't see any. Okay. So I will ask for any opposition to the approval of the minutes as printed. Okay, well, thank you. So those minutes have been adopted. Item F, any business arising from the minutes from the meeting on May 3rd? Any business arising from these minutes? Nope. Okay, thank you very much. Gee, we have some presentations this evening and I'm looking forward to them. G1, we're going to be asking Superintendent, I think, Querbach for the scholarships and bursary awards. Is that correct?
Yes, thank you.
We look forward to this every year. This is a big thing. And I know we're having something on June the 15th, and I know you'll talk about that. But if it wasn't a Teams meeting, we'd be all in person and we'd be very excited. Okay, take it away, G1.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have the distinct honor tonight of announcing the recipients of our board level scholarships and bursaries. So I'm just going to share my screen so I can go through a short presentation. just indicating the winners. And as Trustee Burgess indicated, we also have an event planned for next week, the details of which I will go through at the end of my presentation. So without further ado, these are this year's scholarship and bursary recipients. So the first award that I'll be announcing is actually a new award this year, and it is a scholarship called 2S LGBTQ, excuse me, IA+, Leaders Be Proud. This year we have 2 recipients, and the Leaders to Be Proud scholarship recognizes graduating students who advocate for inclusivity, diversity, and support for the 2S LGBTQ IA+ community within their school or hometown. The Leaders to Be Proud scholarship is the first of its kind in the Essex region, aimed at recognizing students who show strong leadership skills and community service through participation in 2S LGBTQ IA+ organizations or initiatives at their school and or within their community. Recipients can be students who identify as two-spirit, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, questioning, intersex, asexual, or non-binary, or students who are 2S LGBTQ IA+ allies. I am very honored tonight to announce that Jillian Dodd from Sandwich Secondary School and Jay Hamill Mitchell from Western Secondary School are the 2 recipients of the inaugural 2S LGBTQ IA+ Leaders Be Proud scholarship. The second award that I'll be presenting tonight is one that has been on the scholarship list for quite some time with our board, and this is called the Bill Lamb Memorial. Bill Lamb was born, raised, and educated in Windsor, Ontario, and during his 23 years of employment with the former Windsor Board of Education, he served as a classroom teacher, assistant coordinator of programs for special education, program leader for the community living program at Walkerville, and special education services consultant. Bill will always be remembered for his work supporting students with special education needs at both local and provincial levels. After a lengthy battle with cancer, Bill passed away on December 6, 1991. He fought the final battle with courage and dignity, the same way he faced all challenges. In order to qualify for this award, students must be entering into a developmental support worker program. So I'm very happy to announce from Western Secondary School, Susie Berg is the recipient of this year's Bill Lamb Memorial Award. This is another new award this year, and this is called the GECDSB Every Child Matters Scholarship. We have 2 recipients this year. In order to qualify for this award, students must identify as First Nations, Métis, or Inuit. They must demonstrate that they have been impacted either directly or indirectly by residential schools and must be enrolled in a post-secondary program upon graduation from high school. So very happy to announce that this year we have 2 recipients, Aiden Dillon from Herman Academy Secondary and Lindsay Trahan from General Amherst Secondary School for the inaugural GECDSB Every Child Matters Scholarship. The Ingle Scholarship goes to international students, and there are 3 awards. In order to qualify for this award, students must be international students attending a secondary school under the jurisdiction of the Greater Essex County District School Board and are intending to attend university or college in Ontario. Recipients of this award have demonstrated leadership and contributed to school activities and have maintained good academic standing. And this year we have 3 recipients: Isabella Sun from Riverside Secondary School, Yanshan Su from Massey Secondary School, and Eugene Wang, also from Massey Secondary School. The Junior Achievement Award actually has 1 scholarship and 1 bursary, so there are 2 recipients this year. In 2002, Junior Achievement of Windsor-Essex County closed its doors after 46 years of service to the youth of our community. Junior Achievement has provided education for youth in our community, and as that was its primary goal, a sum of money has been donated to the Greater Essex County District School Board to establish the Junior Achievement Scholarship Bursary Fund. These scholarships and bursaries are awarded to secondary school students who are graduating from a secondary school operated by the board and who are intending to attend university or college. So I am happy to report that this year the Junior Achievement Scholarship went to Emma Dunlop from Essex District High School, and the Junior Achievement Bursary went to Tala Al-Jailani from Sandwich Secondary School. The Little and Dean Award is an award that goes to 10 students across the district. This award is $10,250 annually for up to 4 years for students planning to study at a Canadian university. In order to qualify for the award, students must demonstrate academic commitment, as well as commitment to non-academic pursuits that indicate commitment, leadership, or potential. So this year, I'm very happy to report that we have 10 recipients for the award. Ewan Van Wagner from Bell River District High School, Lindsay Trahand from General Amherst Secondary School, Rodas Petros from Herman Academy, Corey Gignac from Kennedy Collegiate Institute, Kennedy Bazaar from Kingsville District High School, Nay Se from Leamington Secondary School, Bridget Line from Massey Secondary School, Nafisa Nazhat from Riverside Secondary School, Bayan Nazra from Westview Freedom Academy, and Anna Joshi from Westview Freedom Academy. The SBO, or School Board Officials Bursary, is an award that goes to students pursuing a skilled trade, apprenticeship, or technical training after high school graduation. In order to be eligible for this award, students must maintain an excellent academic record, display a positive attitude toward their studies, overcome significant personal difficulties to achieve their Ontario Secondary School diploma, and demonstrate good citizenship through positive contributions to their secondary school or community. So I am very happy to report that from Essex District High School, we are honoring Haley Gibbs this year with the School Board Officials Bursary. This is another new award that was generously created by our student trustees. So rather than announcing this award myself, I'm going to turn it over to our student trustees to announce the recipients of the Student Leadership Award.
Thank you, Superintendent Korbach. The Student Leadership Scholarship was established by the 2021-22 Greater Essex County District School Board student trustees to congratulate and honor 2 graduating students that present exemplary leadership skills and dedication to their school communities. This award of $500 is gifted to students by the student trustees based on their contributions to their school communities. And without further ado, I am pleased and honored to announce our first recipient, Ayman Suharwardi. As a grade 12 student at Vincent Massey Secondary School, Ayman has been involved in multiple school projects, including the creation and leading of his school's Muslim Student Association, where he leads an exceptional team of students to promote an inclusive community for our Muslim population. He also worked diligently to establish a TED-Ed group, which is officially TEDx certified. Ayman is headed to Wayne State University next year for engineering, and we are excited to see what he accomplishes. And now I'll pass it over to Student Trustee Hawkins for our second winner.
Thank you. And our other recipient for the 2022 Student Leadership Scholarship is Ainsley Russett from Walkerville Collegiate Institute. Ainsley is an exceptional dancer as a part of the WCCA dance program and checks all of the boxes of a strong and impactful student leader. Ainsley is passionate about mental health and worked throughout the pandemic to support the mental health of Walkerville students through organizing fun school events and helping her peers get access to mental health supports. Ainsley will be extending her passion for mental health next year when she heads to the University of Windsor for honors psychology. Congratulations to our 2 recipients, and thank you to all of the students who both applied for the scholarship and have displayed incredible leadership throughout their time at the GECDSB.
Thank you, trustees, student trustees Hawkins and McCowie. Our next award is the W.L. Clark Bursary. And as you'll see, there are 4 recipients. This bursary is in memory of Willis Lumgare Clark. The W.L. Clark Bursary Fund was established for Mr. Clark, who was the former editor of the Windsor Record newspaper, later known as the Windsor Star. He passed away in 1974 and bequeathed a portion of his estate to the Board of Education for the City of Windsor. He stipulated that the funds be distributed to students who were pursuing their post-secondary studies at a university. In addition to participating in school activities, he required that bursary recipients must demonstrate strong leadership ability, initiative, and academic achievement. So I am very happy to announce that from Herman Academy, our first recipient is Niyama Hassan. From Massey Secondary School, we have Miriam Herman. Also from Massey Secondary School, we have Anna Wang. And finally, from Westview Freedom Academy, we have Nufalia Hujan for the W.L. Clark bursary. Our next award is the William Barrett Scholarship. This award is given in the name of Mr. William Barrett. As a student from Windsor studying in the engineering program at Queen's University, Bill received the IODE bursary. Now he wishes to support a young person from Windsor to further their educational goals in engineering. So congratulations to this year's recipient from Riverside Secondary School, Vanessa Wong, for the William Barrett Scholarship. So as I mentioned at the outset of this presentation, this year, in celebration of all of the recipients, we are having a in-person celebration next Wednesday, June 15th at the Chicharo Club. Trustees should all have received an invitation to this event. Invitations have also gone to senior administration, as well as key staff from the different schools from which the recipients are coming, and as well as parents and family members close to the recipients. So just for some additional information, there will be a program at 5:30 p.m. So we will announce the award winners, and there will be brief bios about each recipient and speaking a little bit to the qualities and achievements that made them the appropriate recipients for these awards. So I hope those of you that are able to join us on that night. It should be a wonderful celebration, and it will be wonderful to have an opportunity to celebrate our award winners in person on June 15th at the Chicharo Club from 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock p.m. So with that, I would like to say congratulations to all of our recipients. This is, I'm in a unique position where I spent 2 years on the selection committee as a school administrator, and now have had the pleasure of overseeing these scholarships and awards as a superintendent. As Trustee Burgess alluded to, this is a wonderful opportunity, and I feel so grateful to have had the opportunity to celebrate our recipients tonight. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Normally there'd be great applause and you'd hear it. And there'd be lots of happy families and lots of picture taking, and we'll see that next Wednesday. So thank you very much for sharing that. That's really appreciated. Are there any questions of Superintendent Querback? Any questions, trustees? Trustee Simcoe Hatfield, please.
Thank you, and my congratulations to all the recipients. But I would like everybody to know that it's not an easy task to choose the final recipients, because there are mountains of applications for these awards from very deserving students. And I wonder if Superintendent Corback could just acknowledge the committee that's given this task, because it's quite a huge undertaking of time, and it's kind of stressful making the final selections. So I wonder if you would just give 30 seconds to acknowledge the committee that does most of these awards, to thank them at this meeting for their time and commitment.
Yes, I'm happy to do that, and thank you for the question, and through you, Madam Chair. Let me start by acknowledging our guidance departments in our secondary schools. Although this is part of their regular yearly duties, there's an extraordinary amount of work that goes into this. So to our heads of guidance and our guidance counselors in our schools, and to all of our staff that contribute to the success of our students, thank you very much. To the families of the recipients and all of the applicants, we know that nobody ever does anything alone, so it's important to acknowledge the contributions of families and support networks and loved ones and those people most closest to our students who apply and are successful in achieving these awards. To the committee, who this year was made up of Trustee Sartori, Trustee Hatfield, Desiree Burnett, Principal of Herman Academy Secondary, and Dave Scadden, Principal at Essex District High School. I would also wish to thank the committee for their work and would be remiss to not acknowledge the behind-the-scenes work of Natalie Middleton-Bondi, the teacher consultant for guidance, as well as Trish Del Papa, who works in this office, who did an enormous amount of work in organizing and making the selection process, the event next week, as well as tonight's presentation possible. So thanks to all of you.
Thank you for that.
Yes, and thanks for the thanks. It really does take a lot of people, and when you do go through that, you're exposed to so much, great talent and wonderful applications. It is indeed a difficult task. Many of us have, been on that committee, and it's great joy, but it's a lot to consider. So thank you very much. Congratulations, and I look forward to seeing everybody next Wednesday. Next on our agenda, if there are no further questions, I don't see any further questions. No? Okay. G2, we have an Indigenous education update given to us by Superintendent Clara Howitt. Thanks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm pleased to be there this evening to provide an update to the Board of Trustees on Indigenous education. So the focus of this presentation is 3 parts. What do we do to support our Indigenous students? How do we engage our community? And how do we support the learning of our staff and our non-Indigenous students? So on the next slide, you'll see where we place a lion's share of our investment, which has a very high yield for us, and that's with our student support workers. They work with classroom teachers to support the academic, cultural, and well-being of our students. They act as liaison to other services within the board and or the community, depending on the need of the student and or the family. They also keep detailed profiles on students so that we track continuously as a team the support for students and what we can do as interventions. They work in small groups with students, and they also collect student voice to determine additional opportunities for learning outside of the school day. On the next slide, you'll see a sample of a schedule for typical, that would be for our workers. That's divided in Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 performance and support for the students. There are schools that they are in on a weekly basis, multiple times a week, schools that they support on a monthly basis, and schools that they support as requested. Clearly, the schools that are Tier 1 are the schools with the highest number of Indigenous students in the district. So on average, they're working with about 35 students in their weekly schools, 25 additional students a month in their monthly schools, and on average about 10 or more students as requested in other areas of the district. On the next slide, you'll see examples of the school day learning opportunities based on input from Indigenous students and families. Examples like the winter sessions for Powwow Fitness, which were really well received and lots of fun for students and families, as well as virtual hand drumming with Harvey Drever. On the next slide, you'll see an example of an after-school beading group that is happening right now, and a strawberry craft night for families in the community that's really indicative of importance in the Indigenous community. On the next slide, you'll see that we offer transitions for transitional support for students. And the first step is when they start out in our school system. So every year, the Open Minds team makes sure that students have that smooth transition. They connect with families, and then they make a personal visit where there are Indigenous students in our early years classrooms. They do a read aloud of the book Oasis and the world famous Bannock, and the child gets to keep the book. On the next slide, you see that we offer support for transitions for our students from grade 8 to 9. The Open Minds workers connect personally with students, typically face-to-face, make that connection. And each year we give them some kind of grab bag. This year we focused on school supplies, including a $20 gift card to Staples, and then had contact information provided, a form for them or a card for them, so they knew who to contact in terms of their Open Minds worker if they needed help throughout the year. On the next slide, a demonstration of a partnership with our community, the Can-Am Indian Friendship Center, on supporting well-being for Indigenous students with the target group of grades 7 to 12. 3 modules were offered to interactive activities to unpack topics relevant for Indigenous youth, and it was facilitated by the Brighter Days program with our partner, and it included Indigenous influencers. So that was very well received as well. On the next slide, new this year, we had a graduation coach for Indigenous students, and their primary goal was to remove barriers for students, develop those trusting relationships with the students and their families, and to identify strategies to support Indigenous students to achieve their credits, graduate, and transition successfully to their chosen post-secondary pathway. On the next slide, we piloted with our friends in special education, the Empower program for Indigenous students. And as you are aware, the Empower program is an evidence-based literacy instruction program to support students with reading difficulties. In fact, my colleague, Superintendent Mike Wilcox, will be coming to an upcoming meeting with the IAAC to give an update and seek further guidance as to how this pilot program will roll out into the future. And last year we offered an academic support program with academic support teachers to support in the area of literacy and numeracy. And the program focuses on the strengths of the students and their academic potential, and it's deeply rooted in a relationship approach. So strong relationships are built with the students as well as with the families. On the next slide, you'll see that the schools that we supported students with the academic support teachers, it was predominantly grade 1 to 4. The students were in grade 1 to 4, some grade 5 students, and a total of 65 students were receiving regular intervention in the area of literacy and numeracy. We did pre-assessments with DRA, quick phonics readers, as well as the Ontario Writing Assessment to support targeted intervention for those students. And then in the area of numeracy, we did pre-assessments with Prime and Leaps and Bounds to provide support in the area of adding and subtracting, estimating, and multiplication and division. Huge success with the students in the program and really strong bonds made with the families. The next slide is sharing some additional supports that we provided for the system. The first one is the Making Connections tutoring program. It's a free tutoring program that is offered to Indigenous students that demonstrate academic need. The students could be anywhere from a range from grade 1 to grade 12. We have students, teachers who are primary, junior, intermediate, and secondary qualified. On average, 25 students are consistently getting support either 1 or more times a week, up to 4 times a week, depending on their need in the program. This is very well received by families, and we've gotten really good at launching it virtually right at the beginning of the school year, so students are getting help truly throughout the school year. On the next slide, you'll see the social entrepreneur program that we spoke about piloting this year, whereby students identify opportunities in their community and have a co-op placement with a passion project on solving design or solutions with positive impact with an Indigenous infusion. A really nice addition to programming support this year. On the next slide, you will see that we offered an Engineering for Climate Change learning opportunity, virtual sessions that was held in the fall with students. And this was done in collaboration with the Western Engineering Outreach Program, the University of Western Ontario. And you can see the topics on the screen that students engaged in learning opportunities on a weekly basis for that six-week session. On the next slide, you'll see that we offer an Indigenous Youth Symposium that just occurred this spring. And it was really about celebrating heroes in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics who are Indigenous, very well received by students. And we're planning an Indigenous Youth Symposium in the area of science and math. So that's in the process of coming about. On the next slide, once again this year for the summer of 2022, we have Camp Megazay. We have an in-person component. We have almost 40 students signed up for the in-person component. We've also offered a virtual opportunity for our junior level students, and we have a week camp, a 1 week camp of arts, Indigenous arts, which is new this year. We're really excited about. On the next slide, you'll see, as Superintendent Corbach stated, we have two recipients of the Every Child Matters Scholarship. This was based on the inaugural Truth and Reconciliation Day in September of 2021. And we sold t-shirts, and staff were buying them left, right, and center. It was awesome. People wanted to show their support, and we raised $1,500 when working in collaboration with Cadluck Creations. But then schools and students wanted to do more, and different activities were happening, and they were wanting to donate dollars from those various activities for the scholarship. So delighted that two students are receiving it for the first time this year, and we look forward to many more opportunities in the future. On the next slide, in terms of community engagement, we have our regularly scheduled IEAC meetings, as well as additional meetings if we need to do additional consultation with the IEAC. We have our newsletters that we do drops several times a year, actually about fortification for our teachers and non-Indigenous students. And you might remember we organized a very detailed sway for staff for the inaugural day of Truth and Reconciliation in September of last year that was filled with professional learning materials, lesson plans, videos. And then we also had, on the next slide, sessions that were supportive of working with artists like Moses Lunham, where we had almost 50 classes who participated in the virtual art sessions, and then story reading with Isaac Murdoch, as well as virtual sessions with the National Council for Truth and Reconciliation for students grade 5 to 12. On the next slide, you'll see that students participated in providing artwork for the Every Child Matters healing walk that took alongside the river. And then on the next slide, you'll see that we offer quite an array of resources for Treaty Week in the fall. And they are offered in terms of PD opportunities for teachers, live sessions for students, resources for teachers to use in the classroom. And those live sessions, we had over 2,000 students that participated. On the next slide, you'll see, continuing with our partnerships and learning, a partnership with the University of Windsor in terms of Indigenous philosophy, and Dr. Andrea Sullivan-Clark, who is an assistant professor in the philosophy department at the U of W, is providing introduction sessions on Indigenous and Western philosophy for interested intermediate and secondary classes. And what previously known as the Art Gallery of Windsor, now known as Art Windsor Essex, also offers virtual sessions to support learning in the arts. And in this case, they were featuring artists who have done murals on the Gordie Howe International Bridge, Canadian Tower, and 21 elementary schools participated in that learning opportunity. On the next slide, you'll see a read aloud learning opportunity that happened with Farron Shipman from the Can-Am Center. 16 different schools were representative. They engaged in multiple week sessions with Farron, very well received. And we also try to choose classes where there are Indigenous students that are represented, a great partnership with the Can-Am. On the next slide, I'm glad to report that we are in our final year of implementation of the NBE program. So now every school in the Greater Essex County District School Board at the secondary level is offering the NBE course in grade 11. And we offered a support for teachers to participate in a writer's workshop with Daniel Lockhart. It was a streamed session to support them in the work that they do in the classrooms and teaching the NBE course. And on the next slide, you'll see that we offered additional resources when we do Earth Day resources. We offer them from an Indigenous perspective, including a live session on Water is Life with storyteller Isaac Murdoch with 1,300 students participating. And then this month, on the next slide, you'll see it's Indigenous History Month. So we're offering multiple resources, again, connecting with Moses, who is Anishinaabeg, and supporting learning sessions. They occurred last week with students. And then on the next slide, you'll see we've put out, again, a plethora of resource links that have students jumping into books and learning, jumping into activities on a daily basis with the support of their teachers. And they're done at different levels in different primary, junior, and intermediate, and so on. And then on the last slide, actually tomorrow is our second Indigenous Youth and Trades opportunity that we do in partnership with Student Success. Very well received last year, so we're repeating it again this year. And we are ending with our graduation ceremony for Indigenous students at the St. Clair Center for the Arts next week on the 17th. And with that, I'm glad to answer any questions that you may have. And thank you to the entire Open Minds team for their dedicated support in supporting Indigenous students. Thank you.
Well, thank you, and thank you to the whole team. There is a lot of work behind that report. Holy cow. So I don't know if there are any questions. Are there any questions from my colleagues for Superintendent Howitt? That was a, you said brief, but holy cow, that was pretty jam-packed update for Indigenous education. Any questions of Superintendent Howitt? I don't hear anything. I think you answered all the questions. I think you put it all together very well. Well, thank you very much, especially during June. That's great. Okay, I should mention too, the little tiny little thing there, Arts Windsor Essex, the former Art Gallery of Windsor, also has for this month the original McKee Treaty up in the facility. So another way they can partner with us for education. We have no delegations for this evening and no one on the speakers list. We don't have any new business or reports. So we're at item L, trustee question period. General trustee questions. Are there any for this committee? Any questions for education? I don't see any. I don't think so. I have one question if no one else has, and I will, I think, direct it to Superintendent Querback. I didn't ask after your presentation for the scholarships, but how do we promote the establishments? I heard you say this is a new one. This is a new one. I wonder how scholarships and bursaries fall from the sky, how they get how they get put together. Do we actively search them out, or do we just wait for the philanthropists to come forward?
So I can tell you what happened this year with the new awards. The 2S LGBTQIA+ Leaders Be Proud Award, that was a donor in the community who reached out to the board specifically in the interest of creating this award. And of course, we were happy to partner and provide that opportunity. Superintendent Howitt, Dr. Howitt did speak to the creation of the Every Child Matters Scholarship, and that the genesis of that was a fundraising effort to purchase orange shirts in recognition of the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. So that was the sort of genesis of that award. And I'm very happy to report that trustees Hawkins and student trustee Hawkins and student trustee McCowie, along with student senate, had the idea to create the leadership scholarship. They wrote the criteria. They put together a panel of students, including themselves, and I think spent about 3.5 hours after school one day here at the board office working on selecting the recipient of that award. And we're very grateful for their commitment to that and time. And for their ingenuity and creativity in honoring leadership with students within the board. So that was sort of how it happened this year, Trustee Burgess. So maybe a little bit of all of the things that you stated in terms of how awards, new awards are created when they come to the board.
Well, thank you. And I imagine every year, you know, it changes, it fluxes because some things die out and aren't renewed, but there's always new ones. So I just love it to see, you know, even more promotion if we could. So we have to kind of get the word out if we can. But that's great. It's a wonderful recognition. So thanks for answering. Any other trustee questions? I don't see any. That's why I asked mine. I thought it was last. Nope, we're good. Okay. M, notices of motion for Education Committee. Knowing that the next meeting will be in the fall. Notices of motion for the meeting in the fall? No. Well, that brings us to announcements. Are there any announcements for Education Committee? Anyone? I have quite a few, if I could get through them, that are education related that fall under Perfect for June. If I could, as we've mentioned, June is National Indigenous History Month, as well as Pride Month. World Environment Day was June the 5th, although we think we need to keep that in mind every day. June 6th, of course, marked the anniversary of the Afzaal family, our London family, and the tragedy there, and we mark that solemnly. We celebrate Father's Day, of course, on June 19th. So for all of you who are fathers who take on that role without the official title, we celebrate with you and hope you have a good Father's Day. World Refugee Day is June the 20th. And National Indigenous Peoples Day, of course, is Midsummer's Day, June the 21st, which is a big day. And we will be meeting, our next board meeting is, I believe, or we have a meeting scheduled for that day, so we will convene then. But it's also World Music Day. So congratulations to all the musicians. Let's celebrate that day. June 27th is Canadian Multiculturalism Day, something that I think that we're very proud of as Canadians. I also wanted to say, trustees have been sent a package showing some of the excellence that was on display for the 17th annual digital photography competition, which was held recently. I had an opportunity to attend on Saturday at Gibson Gallery. There were over 350 submissions of digital photography, ranging from kindergarten through grade 12. And I can't brag enough about, I only saw the honorable mentions in the final winners. I didn't see all 350, but it was just an amazing work. So the awards ceremony was at the Gibson Gallery, as I said, on Saturday, and it was just wonderful to see all the families and the students out for that celebration at that venue. Really outstanding work, and congratulations to everyone. June 29th coming up is the last professional development day for the year, whereby staff will have the opportunity to hear Mr. Desmond Cole, who's the author of the book, The Skin We're In, and Daniel Campo, who's the Paralympic swimmer. She won 3 gold medals on the topic of ableism and perseverance. I also wanted to say I gave regrets at the beginning of this meeting for Trustee Amy Olmsted. And there are reasons for her regrets of being absent. And I want to make it into an announcement and to encourage everyone to sign their donor card to consider being a living donor. Amy is in recovery now, having been a live donor of a kidney to her husband, and is recovering well. And we wish her and her husband and her family well. But we would like to encourage as much as we can for everybody to be aware of signing your donor card and making sure that you understand how precious that gift of life is to the recipient. Finally, this Wednesday and Thursday, I'll be missing out on some concerts held at Migration Hall. There's an elementary music concert on Wednesday at 6, and Thursday, the secondary panel has theirs at Migration Hall in Kingsville at, I believe, 7 o'clock. And I look forward to these things resuming and seeing families and students in person in a large crowd. So that will be all the announcements I have. That's a lot. And at this time, I will call for adjournment. And Madam Chair will convene now into Operations and Finance Committee. But just to let you know, there were no resolutions or motions. So for item I1 on the board agenda, there is nothing arising from Education Committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Burgess, and I will take it from here and call to order our Operations and Finance Committee meeting at 7:48, which may be a record for start time. So this is exciting for us. I will note that attendance is the same as the previous committee. And so we are on to approval of the agenda. Can I get a mover, please? Okay, I see Trustee Cook and seconded by Trustee Higginson. Thank you. Any discussion on the agenda? Okay, seeing none. Any opposition? And that carries. Declaration of conflict of interest. Are there any declarations this evening? Okay, seeing none, I will go to item E, approval of minutes. Can I get a mover to approve the minutes? I should say from May 3rd Operations and Finance Committee meeting. I see Trustee Hatfield's hand raised and seconded by Trustee Sartori. Thank you. Any discussion on the minutes? Okay, seeing none. Any opposition to approval of the minutes? Okay, seeing none, that carries, and we'll go to item F, business arising from the minutes. Do any of the trustees have any business arising this evening? Okay, going once, going twice, seeing none, we'll move along to presentations. There are none this evening. There were no delegations at the time of agenda preparation. There is nobody on the speakers list. And so we are on to item J, new business, and which is on J1, which is short-term financing of capital projects, which is pages 8 to 10 in your agenda package. The recommendation that is before you is that the board approve the attached borrowing bylaw number 39. So can I get a mover? I see Trustee Leclerc, seconded by Trustee Cheen. So that's on the floor. Are there any questions? I know that admin is prepared to speak to this, but just wondering if there's any questions before they do so. Okay, seeing no questions, I will go. Is there any opposition to the recommendation that the board approve the attached borrowing bylaw number 39? Okay, seeing no opposition, and that carries. Thank you all. And we will go to reports. So K1 is the 2022-2023 draft budget update. So I'll just introduce, I think it will be Mr. Mayhew who's speaking to this afternoon, but I'll just note it's just an update. So it's pages 11 to 23. And there will be obviously a more fulsome discussion at our next meeting where we'll have our budget meeting in person, but this is just an update for trustees. So Mr. Mayhew, are you there? I can't see you if you're ready to speak to this.
I am here, and I think Superintendent Armstrong was going to get this one.
Oh, okay. My apologies. Sorry, I thought this one was you. Thank you.
I think this is Mr. Mayhew through you, Madam Chair. I just want to introduce him and just acknowledge all of Sean's hard work, even to get to the point of writing just this budget memo all of the ministry reporting in EFIS actually has to be completed first before then we have to work backwards to complete everything else. So he's done a ton of work. I just want to thank him for that, and wanted to give Sean the opportunity to take you through the budget information in your package.
Thanks so much. And I know that there's a lot more coming. So thanks, Mr. Mayhew. I'll turn it over to you now.
Maybe I misunderstood. Sorry, are we on item K1 or are we on item J1?
K1, sorry.
K1, thank you. Yes,
We
I am
went quickly.
I am providing an update on K1. Thank you. I misunderstood. Okay. All right. Good evening, everyone. Purpose of this memo is to provide a preliminary review of the draft 2022-23 budget that will be presented for approval at the June 20th special board meeting. It's the intention of administration to present a balanced budget for the 2022-23 school year. Since enrollment's the primary driver of funding, I think it's important first to understand changes in enrollment year over year. The first portion of the memo reviews enrollment projections for the 22-23 school year. When we speak enrollment, we're speaking average daily enrollment, which is the enrollment at October plus the enrollment at March divided by 2. Enrollment projections are conservative in nature. They represent the expected enrollment based on known registrations at the time. I think that's important to understand. Oftentimes we have deferred registration, students that enroll later in the summer or really early near the school year. We don't capture those in our projections. Staffing is based on known enrollment and projections at the time. So it's our hope that this enrollment will increase, and any increases from now until the start of the school year will be reflected in the revised budget in the fall. You'll see that in elementary enrollment is projected to decrease budget to budget by 156 students. And that's offset by an increase in the secondary panel of 147 students compared to the prior year budget. And there's a slight decrease of 3 students, international fee paying students. So in aggregate, budget to budget, we're expecting enrollment to be flat or show a small decrease, 9 students or 9 average daily enrollments. There's a chart on page 13 of your package which shows the enrollment trend over the past 4 years since before the pandemic. I think it's good to understand the picture of enrollment, the story of enrollment over the last 4 years, because obviously the COVID-19 pandemic has had a significant impact on student enrollment. And while we're consistent budget to budget enrollment wise, it's important to note that enrollment has not returned to pre-COVID-19 pandemic levels. Since 2019-20, overall enrollment has decreased by 936 students, which is really significant. The next section on pages 13 to 16 provide a summary of the changes in funding budget to budget. The memo highlights in detail the impact of enrollment and changes in GSN funding, or that's the grant for student needs, announced by the ministry on February 17th of 2022. A total increase in budgeted revenues is estimated to be $8.4 million. That increase does not include unannounced board-by-board allocations of additional priorities and partnerships fundings that are typically announced after the approval of the budget. They may be announced in year. Only a certain portion of our funding has been announced, and that is what is included in our budget. Summary is also provided of the 2021-22 COVID funding and how that has been flowed into the GSN directly for 22-23. It's important to note that the 21-22 budget only reflects 50% of the announced funding as directed by the ministry. Comparing the full year COVID funding supports between 21-22 and 22-23, there's a funding decrease of approximately $1.7 million. Further, the 22-23 funding for COVID learning recovery of $5.1 million is intended to cover a number of initiatives that is not comparable to the additional staffing supports provided in the prior year. If you'll recall, last year, all our COVID funding was announced, but we were only allowed to budget for half of those supports. So when looking at budget to budget, it's important to understand that last year's budget included only half of the COVID supports, and this year's budget includes all funding. Pages 17 through 19 provide a detailed overview of the changes in budgeted expenses. Expenses are expected to increase by $4.1 million, but this increase does not consider the following. It does not include an increase in attendance or absenteeism expenses. It does not account for the full impact of price escalation and inflation, and it does not account for the cost of a remote learning option, as it's unknown how many students will opt out of in-person learning. 22-23 expenses reflect a $1 million deficit for transportation and a $9.1 million deficit for special education, and that's the largest special education deficit that I've seen in my eight years here. A total of 75.4 positions have been added to the budget compared to the prior year, and this is described in further detail in the memo. With the presentation of a balanced budget, there's no requirement to use 1% of the board's operating allocation, which is projected to be $4.4 million. However, it should be noted that the 21-22 results are still unknown. The board anticipates using at least 1% of its operating allocation in the current year, and that could be higher. Funding for furniture and equipment for the new Kingsville JK-12 will be appropriated from the surplus as directed by the ministry. The board still maintains a strong surplus, demonstrating its commitment to ethical stewardship of its resources. The capital budget is reviewed on page 20. Consistent with the operating budget, its projected funding equals projected expenses, i.e. a capital balanced budget. Capital expenses are projected to be $72 million. And then Appendix A and Appendix B on pages 22 and 23 provide a walk from the 21-22 budget revenue and expenses to the 22-23 budgeted expenses, revenue and expenses in detail for your review. The budget binder for trustees are scheduled to be delivered this Friday to ensure trustees have sufficient time to review the entirety of the budget in detail. And at this time, I'd be happy to take any questions with respect to the budget.
Thanks so much, Mr. Mayhew. And I note that there's one hand. It looks like that is Trustee Hatfield. If you would like to ask your question, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I have two, but I'll do one, and then you can let me know when I can do the other. So on page 18 of the budget, and I don't know if there's going to be an answer tonight, but so my questions, I guess I'd be looking for a little bit more information when we actually do the budget. But so you mentioned that in the prior year there was $2 million in the director's contingency fund that went to a number of initiatives. And I know that for myself and a number of other trustees over the past little while, we have asked questions about different initiatives and how we're going to pay for them. And the answer would keep coming back that it was in the director's line budget that these things would be paid for. So I guess what I'm concerned about is that there still seem to be a lot of new priorities and initiatives that are coming online in the near future. And I don't know how I'm going to be able to figure out as a trustee whether or not they're going to have adequate funding, because I am worried that they won't, that you can't pack out absolutely everything into the director's line item there. So I am concerned about that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would be happy to try and answer that question. Certainly invite Mr. Mayhew to comment as well. When you do receive your budget binder at the end of the week, what we have done is we have, similar to last year, we have identified at the beginning of the budget document the initiatives or the priorities of the strategic priorities of the board, and the budget investments that have been made for those strategic priorities. In addition to that, we have also provided input with respect to two additional significant initiatives of the board, including anti-Black racism, diversity, equity, inclusion, as well as mental health for staff and students. and the budget document will speak specifically to the investments in those initiatives that are included in the 22-23 budget. And we also included a section with respect to the budget survey and the public consultation that we did receive from our community partners. And in that consultation, there were 4 main items that the public felt were not sufficiently funded from their perspective. And we discuss how the budget addresses those 4 key areas identified by the public in the document itself. I appreciate it's hard sometimes to see that level of detail in the appendices that are part of the budget document. So we specifically do talk about that so that trustees will be able to see that more visibly in terms of the commentary.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. So you let me know when I can ask my second one. Okay.
Thanks, Trustee Hatfield. I see Trustee Cheen in the chat, and then I'll go to Trustee Higgison after that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question is regarding the projection of the students' number next year. That's very important because it affects the amount of budget and the number of the teachers that we are recruiting. And I see that the total amount is decreasing, even not much, but I do think it might be too conservative, and because the pandemic is recovering and the international students is coming back, and also we have several big plans, establishing in Windsor. So we are kind of optimistic regarding the future of Windsor, and obviously it will develop, expand quickly. So I really think that the projection of the amount shouldn't be so conservative. I think we should project how to see that more optimistically, and get so that the budget, the data of recruitment will be more close to the reality.
Thank you for the question. Maybe I'll start through you, Madam Chair, and then maybe Mr. Mayhew can chime in. I appreciate the comments that you are making, Trustee Cheen. Certainly, there have been a lot of positive announcements about development in Windsor. That development, though, is years out before it will be realized, and so we wouldn't actually be realizing any enrollment increases from any additional housing development associated with those investments for some years to come. So since we're working on the budget for this upcoming school year, we've tried to take a conservative approach. We're very deliberate when we do that. We don't want to be in a position where we've significantly overestimated, and then from there we're incurring expenses at a level that is not sustainable for the board, and then we go to true up our enrollment when we do our revised estimates, we could end up in a position where we're actually incurring a deficit. So we're very deliberate in terms of how we do that, being mindful that it is public dollars, it's public funding, and we're trying to be wise in terms of how we're spending that money. And Mr. Mayhew, I don't know if you have anything further you'd like to add to that.
I can just briefly add to that. I think that's the opportunity that the revised budget in the fall provides for us. It provides us the opportunity to reevaluate our enrollment. What we don't want to do, what Superintendent Armstrong was saying, was overestimate the number of kids and staff based on that, because our staffing model for both elementary and secondary is based on the number of students. If those students don't show up, and we have overestimated the number of students, we're in a position where we don't need the staffing supports that we have budgeted for. So we want to be conservative in our estimates. Should additional students show up in the fall, that's a positive, and that would be captured in our revised budget.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I will go to Trustee Higgison, and then I see Trustee Burgess on deck after that.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and through you, and thank you. I want to echo Chair Sipker's question or statements about the the report. It's quite thorough, and I feel the more and more that we get reports like this, we've gotten them quarterly, of course, and we have our own workshop about it. I feel more prepared to make good decisions on behalf of the public. So I want to thank you and your teams for your work in that. My comments or my questions tonight are specific to mental health support. So Trustee Chin just made reference to, we feel like we may be coming out of the pandemic, but certainly there are remnants of damage from the pandemic. And one of those is that we know that our students and our staff, to the points earlier about strategic priorities and what system needs we have, that those mental health supports, we've been talking at length even before the pandemic about the weight of those and how much we needed to invest in those, and now we know that those have certainly increased. So I'm wondering if we can make very clear and specific where we're investing in mental health supports, how many are kind of net new positions or something that we can see an expansion of mental health supports, and how many, this is kind of 3 questions in one, but I won't ask a supplementary. How many are maybe focused on the early years? We've heard a lot about executive functioning in the early years, and wondering how we're sort of helping our earliest learners do transitions that and be successful in their early years programming when their entry into school has been disrupted in some way, and that we're seeing. We'd like to give them a good start to leave their schooling.
Thank you for the question. Through you, Madam Chair. The budget document that you will receive does specifically speak to mental health. It does it primarily in 2 sections. One discusses specifically the investments in the current year when you compare budget to budget in terms of the mental health investments. And so what you will see in that document is that there was an increase in funding of approximately $425,000 from the Ministry of Education to support the continued learning and well-being of students. And the board has implemented investments or is using that funding for new investments. We've added 1 full-time equivalent for a well-being teacher, 1 full-time equivalent for an applied behavior analyst facilitator, 1 full-time equivalent for a behavior analyst, and 1 full-time equivalent social worker to support student health and well-being. And as well, the investment in the mental health budget has increased by $50,000 for additional mental health, additional supplies and resources. The second part, where it's referenced in the budget document, talks about the total investment altogether in the 22-23 budget, not just budget to budget. And so, as I just mentioned, there's an additional net 4 full-time equivalent positions that have been added. I've mentioned the additional $50,000 investment, but in total, the 22-23 budget will include 17 full-time equivalent social workers, 8 full-time equivalent psychologists, 1 re-engagement attendance counselor, 5 behavioral analysts, 4 applied behavioral analyst facilitators, and a mental health lead. And in total, in terms of the amount that's available in that budget for supplies, services, and professional development, is $400,000. And so we do reflect that actually in the descriptor in the budget document. And this is also in addition to the funding that we do provide for our employee assistance programs, which is about $235,000 in the budget. So you'll be able to see that. We have not talked specifically about early years, but we're happy to take that back and answer questions related to that.
That would be great. I appreciate that, and I appreciate that level of detail that's coming. I would like to see what specifically in early years, maybe some that, because I know that's not only a concern now, but I'm thinking about future planning and how we're kind of setting not only our students up for success, but certainly their teachers and I do appreciate that there are a lot of needs that we have, and that mental health happens to be one of many. I think it is a blanket one for me that I think we really need to focus on, and I'm pleased that my colleagues have agreed and have put some behind that with staff and with students, and pleased to see those in the budget.
Thanks, Trustee Higginson, and I will go now to Trustee Burgess.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Number one, I just wanted to note a little correction. I meant to do it before the meeting, but I'm sorry. Page 18, it says change your future counselors. I think they're create your future counselors now. But my question is, I'm trying to reconcile the comments about how what we're looking at doesn't take into consideration any inflationary costs, any kind of recognition of something that we're all existentially in the middle of. And I'm wondering, can you give us any indication? Because I mean, obviously there's inflation. It's in our face. It's everywhere. So is COSBO, is OPSOA, are your colleagues, what is our political piece on this? I know we have a government in place now, but what's our piece on this, on how we need to recognize inflationary costs in our budgeting and in the funding that flows to us?
Through you, Madam Chair, I would think advocacy. We certainly do discuss it at a COSBO level. The GSN does allow for an element of inflation, but it's like 2.3% or 2.1%, and we know inflation is between 6 and 7%. So our dollar, the purchasing power of our dollar is so much less than what it was before. I would suggest advocacy. We're promoting a balanced budget. We don't feel that going into a deficit is the right solution. We're going to try and manage our non-salary related costs to the best that we can with the funding that we have. But we continue to advocate for it. It's hard to answer that question other than I would suggest we need to advocate.
If I could put a finer, okay. Yeah, Sean.
Sorry, I was just going to add to that. I think throughout the budget, we've tried to include increases where they're known. For instance, when we have contracts for various IT products, services, and we know there's known increases, we've tried to factor that in. I think, though, we have to really look at this as a risk to the budget. Mm-hmm. We'll try our best to manage that inflation within our current allocation. And as Superintendent Armstrong said, that just might not afford us the same purchasing power necessarily. So perhaps there wouldn't be the ability to purchase as much with that same budget, but definitely a risk to the budget.
Okay. I look forward to the binder.
Thanks, Trustee Burgess. And I will just circle back and ask if anyone else has any first questions before I go to Trustee Hatfield. I'm not seeing any in the chat.
Trustee Halberstadt has his hand up.
Oh, okay, sorry, he's not showing up on my screen. So yeah, go ahead, Trustee Halberstadt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I have a question based on a previous budget report where we're talking about the pandemic and all the technology that went out the door to the to students, and it was indicated that there's a considerable loss of technology occurred when the technology was to be brought back to the board. And I think I think it was Sean that said that you're going to be tabulating that, and I'm just wondering when we might see that that figure.
I can certainly start that answer through you, Madam Chair. The IT Services Department is in the process right now of collecting all of the devices that are LTE. So they have internet built into them for our families to utilize internet. So we're going to be collecting those over the month of June, and we'll redistribute them to students as needed in September. That way we're going to be able to save some funding or some money with respect to internet charges. And our IT department is continuing to assess the return of technology, the other devices. Students that are graduating, for example, those devices will be collected at the end of June to make sure that we have those devices back. And then the balance of the devices, I think that the intent is to wait to see how students respond to the remote learning option before we make any other decisions in terms of collecting those devices. But IT does have a very rigorous process. They know exactly who has which device. So they're very on top of it. It's not as if there's no tracking or reporting associated with it. So I can offer that. And then in terms of damage, I think that that's anticipated, that some are going to be return damaged. We've seen instances where devices have been loaned throughout the pandemic and things have come back damaged. Usually in those instances, those devices are not redeployed back where they're damaged intentionally or something of that nature. So we continue to monitor and follow up on that.
Okay, supplementary. So you're is there going to be quantification of how much actual money is lost because of the technology issues, and will that be in the binder? Or are you going to wait for a while till you can do the inventory?
Through you, Madam Chair, I can attempt to answer this one, and Superintendent Armstrong can jump in. The provision for any lost technology or costs associated with lost or damaged technology would be provided for in the current year, not most likely next year. It's something that we'll be assessing throughout the summer and building into any provisions for those expenses into the current year. That said, it likely won't be as significant as you might think, only because much of that technology that was deployed was near its useful life anyways, the end of its useful life. We write computers off over a 2-3 year period. So there wouldn't be a significant amount of assets that would have to be written off at year end. But absolutely, we'll be conducting that review over the summer, and you'll likely see the results of that as part of the 21-22 financial statements.
Okay, thank you. It's good to know that it won't be a significant amount of money, but I think I would like to see it reported upon when the time comes.
Thanks, Trustee Halberstadt. And one more chance for everyone to get their first round of questions in. Okay, so I will go to Trustee Hatfield, and then I saw Trustee Cheen's hand go up again, so I'll circle back to you as well. So go ahead, Trustee Hatfield.
Okay, thanks. So my question comes from page 23 of the report, and there's already been some question and response about mental health supports, and most of that was about student needs. And my question is a little bit more focused on the health and well-being of our staff, where I see on this page that there's going to be the decrease of a half-time Jeep coordinator. And so my question is, and I'm guessing that might be a retirement, although I probably don't need to know the reason for the decrease, but my question is, are we going to be able to keep up to the needs of our staff with regards to their own well-being, especially I think with the services that are provided with Jeep? Do we have adequate support for our staff in place when that decrease happens? I don't know when it's going to happen, but when it does, are we going to be able to meet the needs of our staff?
Thank you for that question. Through you, Madam Chair. I'm wondering perhaps if Superintendent Houston might be available to discuss that. I think it's important to recognize that this is the preliminary budget, and certainly as we get to revised estimates, we do have an opportunity to review that budget as well in the fall. So if there are any adjustments or things of that nature, we would certainly take that into account. But I think Superintendent Houston would be able to provide more commentary on this.
Okay. Thank you for the question. Through you, Madam Chair. If you recall, we presented with our working with SBCI for our overall mental health strategy for our employees. We will be coming forward. I went to Policy Committee last night and we'll be coming forward at the June 21st board meeting with our mental health and resilience policy for staff. And at that time, we'll be sharing how we'll be supporting our staff and recognizing that, yes, there is a reduction in GEEP specifically, but looking at what employee assistance programs offer for all of our employees.
Okay, good. So like this preliminary report was a good opportunity for us then to pick out some of those things that are a concern, and we'll be hearing more about it. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Trustee Hatfield. And I will go to Trustee Jean.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. My question is regarding the page 20 capital budget, and the grant relates to several school projects. I wonder. I remember that we got Ontario Public School Board's budget for the Northwood Public School. I think it's quite amount. I wonder why we cannot see the school's name here. Do you know what I mean?
I'm wondering, through Madam Chair, could you repeat the question? I'm not sure that I entirely understand.
Yeah. I mean the capital budget. We major capital programs represents the construction cost budgeted to be incurred related to the new Kingsville, James Eldon, and New North Shore, Legacy Oak Trail, North Star High School, and Eastview Horizon Public School. And I remember that the provincial government gave the quite amount budget to the Northwood to expand Northwood. And it's not included in this capital budget. Let me see.
Trustee Jean, are you just asking if that was an oversight, if that should be there, or if it's somewhere else and you're just not seeing it?
I just because we get a message that we receive 4.9 million for an addition to Northwood for 184 students. So I'm not sure. I thought it should be included in the capital budget, right?
Thank you for the question. It is included in the capital budget. We just didn't list every item from a new school construction. We can certainly add the reference to the addition at Northwood. And I believe it is referenced in the budget document that trustees will be receiving at the end of the week, but it is reflected in the capital budget.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Trustee Jean. Is there anything further? I'm seeing a hand up from Trustee Hatfield, but I'm assuming that's a remnant hand. Yes, okay. Seeing no further questions from trustees, thank you, Superintendent Armstrong and Mr. Mayhew for this update in advance of our meeting coming up. I'll just make note that as Mr. Mayhew stated that there'll be a binder going out to trustees this week, and then it will be publicly available sometime next week. We didn't get an exact date, but it will be ahead of our meeting on the 20th. So for the trustees, please prepare your questions in advance. I know that it greatly helps administration. I know some opportunity tonight to ask questions, but if you have detailed questions, it just allows them to prepare. So I'm passing that message along on their behalf. So with that, we'll go to item K2, which is Community Planning and Partnerships, report on potential spaces available, which is on pages 24 to 32. And I will turn that over to Superintendent Armstrong.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This report is to provide trustees with information regarding the potential unused spaces that are available for community partnerships on a cost recovery basis for the 22-23 school year, and to update you on information regarding the public meeting that was held on November 23rd, 2021. The COVID pandemic has continued to have implications on the rental and community use of board facilities in the 2021-22 school year, with rentals and community use of schools being paused in the year. The board does continue to follow all public guidance in health guidance in this regard. Appendix 1 of the report outlines the invitees to the public meeting that was held virtually on November 23rd. Anything that's in bold were the individuals or the organizations that actually attended the virtual meeting. Appendix 2 provides a summary of the available school spaces in 22-23. And Appendix 3 provides a summary of the facility partnerships that currently exist, with any new items being highlighted in yellow. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions on this report from trustees? Okay, seeing none, I just had one quick one, and that was on the Appendix 3, which was, I noticed that Giles Campus French Immersion is highlighted, and I note that it's because the partner changed in terms of the daycare provider. It seems as though. My question was just going to be, for the 2022-2023 school year, with the new James L. Dunn School, is there current plans to have a facility partner there for daycare that you would know off the top of your head? It just dawned on me. And then also, will that be the provider that it's switched to?
Through you, yes, there will be a childcare provider. I don't have the name handy with me, so I can't comment yet about who it was awarded to, but I can follow up on that for you.
Okay, thank you. Yep. And I noted that Trustee Hatfield has her hand up.
Yeah, sorry, I missed the fact that I did have a question on this, and it's about the meeting that was held in November, and quite an extensive list of groups that were invited to attend the meeting, and out of that list, only 4 attended, which is very disappointing. And I just wondered if this meeting is really effective. Like, is there a better way that we could be doing this? Because I'm sure that takes up a lot of administration's time to organize this event and send out all these invitations. And I know that we get this report from previous years, but I just don't recall the actual attendance numbers, but I don't think it's ever been high. So I just wonder if this is the best way to reach the community.
Thank you for the question. Through you, Madam Chair, I would agree. In my time with the board, I mean, I've done this now 3 times, and it's not been very high in terms of attendance. And my experience, and certainly COVID has dampened a lot of things. My experience in these conversations is, part of it is we want to share with the community the new opportunities in terms of construction that we are doing, in case there are opportunities to partner in some respect in those construction projects. Part of it too, I find, is partners want us to maybe use their space which is kind of not what we're trying to accomplish in these meetings. But that being said, I tend to agree. I think that, you know, we do need to take a look at it to see if there's another way that we can try and communicate that might generate more community interest. Superintendent Onwender does participate in these meetings with me, and we can certainly go back and review that to see if there's some way we can reimagine this.
Yeah, so, sorry, if I could, I think this came as a result of a trustee, might have been a motion or some kind of a trustee initiated event. And I think it really was just to try and see if we could get more interest. You know, that it was for the right purpose. But I think it is time that we look at that and see if there might be a better way. So I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks, Trustee Hatfield. That was a really good question. I think that yeah, seeing the attendance and seeing what's available, we could maybe do something a little different. So I appreciate the question. And oh, I do see Superintendent Awender. Did you want to add anything to that?
Yes, just going back to you, Trustee Sipkar. We do have going into the James L. Dunn building an infant, a toddler, a preschool, and then a before and after school. And it is through Delta Chi.
Awesome, thank you. I appreciate that update. Thank you. Okay, is there anything else on this report? Any further questions from trustees?
I have a question.
Oh, okay. Yep, go ahead, Trustee Halberstadt. I can't see you, so go ahead.
Okay, I know that we're in the trustees received a survey, extensive survey report with staff. And there was all kinds of feedback there. It was all anonymous, or most of it was. I'm just wondering, when we did receive that, it was indicated that when you do the budget, you'll look at all these suggestions from, whether they're negative or otherwise, from this survey and integrate it into the budget document. Is that being done, or will it be done?
Thank you for the question. Through you, Madam Chair, when we developed the budget, we did look at and review all of the comments as part of that process. And in terms of the top 4 priorities that were identified most frequently by the individuals completing the survey, we do speak to that in the budget and how we've tried to align the budget to incorporate those elements.
Trustee Halberstadt, I'll just make a point to say that that was on the last item. We're on item K2. So any further comments on the budget? I know we're going to have a meeting in person, so we can save those for then. Okay, so seeing no further questions on K2, we will move on to trustee question period. Are there any questions from trustees for administration tonight? Trustee Hatfield, yes, go ahead, please.
Okay, thank you. So this goes to the discussion about enrollment and how important it is to our whole funding. I've been going through some old files and kind of purging and cleaning them up, and I came across something that went back to a trustee motion that was passed in November of 2015, actually. And it was with regard to concerns over enrollment and the need to at least maintain our enrollment and try and improve it every year if we could. So this motion was for the creation of a student recruitment and retention committee, and it did get set up, and it had a mandate, and there were subcommittees. All focused on improving enrollment for our board. And I just don't know where it ended up, whether it's still ongoing or if it's been abandoned as an initiative for addressing enrollment concerns.
Thanks, Trustee Hatfield. I will turn that over to administration. I'm not sure exactly who that would go to.
It's Director Kelly. I could certainly answer that. Yes, indeed, there was a committee, particularly looking at certain populations to see how we could do a better job of recruitment. I do believe there was a final report written on that. And then after that, I don't believe there was anything further to that, but certainly something to consider, particularly in light of the context we're in right now. So thanks for the reminder about that.
That's what made me think of it too. Exactly. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Trustee Hatt. Is there anything further on that one?
No, but it was a good initiative at the time, exactly because of recruitment concerns. So, you know, to look at it again, I think is warranted. Thank you.
Thanks for raising that to everyone's attention. Trustee Halberstadt, are you wanting to ask a question? I can see you now. Trustee Halberstadt, are you there? Would you like to ask a question? I noticed that your camera and you were unmuted there.
No.
No, you're good? Okay. Okay, are there any other questions from trustees tonight? Okay, go ahead, Trustee Halberstadt. Trustee Halberstadt, you are muted now.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah,
my question is to Superintendent Allender, and it's regard to Waddell's football. There's word out in the community that all the helmets will not be able to be resurfaced or refined for the fall season of football. And in fact, there's a concern that there won't be any football in the fall, and like last fall or in the spring. So I'm just wondering if he could address that. And I did speak to him yesterday, and I know he does have some answers. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, and through you, Madam Chair. Yes, we did talk yesterday about it, and we have what's happened is Rydell was the person or the company organization that recertified all of our football helmets. They have no longer decided to do that at this point in time because they're so far behind. And that's not just for our school board, that's for the entire province, or for anybody for that matter. So we had Sarah Jackman, who is our consultant for physical education, who does a phenomenal job. She went out and she looked and found a company called, I want to say it's Air 51. I know 51 is at the end, but it's as a company, it's in the States, just like Riddell was, and they are willing to do it for us. So we put out a survey to all the schools to make sure that if they needed any helmets recertified, they would let us know. The gentleman is coming next week to pick up the helmets to take them down to wherever this company is located, and they're going to be recertified, and so we should be ready to go.
Okay, thank you. Just a supplementary. As far as coaches are concerned, getting the training that I guess we were short of last year, is there an opportunity for other coaches who weren't notified about these training sessions last year to have another session before the football season gets underway or starts to get underway?
Yeah, we'll certainly make that available to them. We had 4 sessions. We notified everybody that was involved. I mean, we could have a new potential hire to the board who decides that they want to participate in coaching the football team. But we would make it open to them as well.
Thank you.
Thanks, Trustee Halberstadt. Any further questions from trustees during trustee question period? Okay, seeing none, I will continue along. Notices of motion for tonight for the Operations and Finance Committee meeting. Okay, no notices of motion. I will go on to announcements. Any announcements from trustees for this evening? I'll just make note that Trustee Burgess did an excellent job covering all the various announcements. The only other one that I will add is we have our upcoming annual budget meeting happening on Monday, June 20th at 5 p.m. and it will actually be in person this year. And that will be ahead of our board meeting on the 21st. So we'll have 2 nights of back-to-back meetings. Just wanted to draw attention to that for the public. And like I said, the budget document will be publicly available sometime next week as well. Okay, so if there are no further announcements, I will adjourn this meeting at 8:41 and we will convene into public board meeting. And so I will turn this over to Chair Higgison.
Thank you very much. So trustees, we are back on our public meeting agenda, and I will, we are at item E, declarations of conflict of interest. Anything for in here this evening? Any declarations of conflict of interest? Seeing and hearing none. Actions of the board meeting private session. Do we have anything, Trustee Cook?
We do. We had one item under new business, F1. If I could have a mover for F1. Trustee Higgison, and a seconder is Trustee Sipcar. Are there anybody opposed to F1? No one's opposed, so that passes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Looking at approval of minutes. Can I get a mover and a seconder to approve those minutes? Moved by Trustee Cook, seconded by Trustee Leclaire. Thank you very much. Any discussion on those minutes in our board package? Seeing and hearing none, any opposition to approval of those minutes? Great, so that passes. Any business arising from the minutes, trustees? Any business arising? Seeing and hearing none. Recommendations from our standing committee. We had nothing from the Education Committee. From Operations and Finance.
Sure, we had item J1. I'm not sure if you need me to read it out.
No, I think we can rewind.
Okay, item J1 then from Operations and Finance.
So we just, do we need to do the mover and the seconder? And I think we probably do, yes. So we need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Trustee Burgess, seconded by Trustee Cook. Any opposition to J1 from our Operations and Finance? Thank you very much, Trustee Sipcar, and thank you, trustees. Any notices of motion? Any notices of motion? Seeing and hearing none, we are adjourned. 8:44. Nice job, team.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Thanks. Take care.
Thank you.